Before I jump into this, I'm actually curious of something. For those of you who like this game or love this game, what is it that really catches you about it? Right? Like, obviously there's something about it that you enjoy. And I don't... See, I'm trying to say this. It sounds so accusatory. I don't mean it that way. I don't mean like, what's wrong with you? No, I'm legitimately curious what you like about the game. Because I'm curious. I asked a couple of people when we were live on the stream what they liked about the game. And ironically, the stuff they liked about the game was the same stuff I liked about the game. So, I'm curious of your responses too. This game scored a net negative on the golden number. So, less than 0. So, go ahead and toss the hate. I don't mind. Net positive on story. Really net negative on gameplay. But I kind of want to talk about something about the story first. I know that's a weird place to start, but bear with me for a second. Because I kept trying to figure out a way to explain why the story felt wrong. So I got a little visual aid here. So imagine you're reading a book, right? As you're going through, periodically, there's a point where like someone just ripped a page out. I'm not going to do that to my questionable content. This is actually my signed questionable content. I've got a... check it out. Got a custom drawing of Hannibal and everything. But anyways, imagine for a moment, you're going through, and someone has just ripped a page out, and then another page, and then there's several sections that are cohesive, and then there's another page, gone. And there's no rhyme or reason to it, right? It's just as you're going through the book, there are parts of it that are very clearly missing. Having actually done some behind-the-scenes research on this one, because I was curious about it, and I happen to really like Matt McMuscles, I decided to do a little more digging on it. And based on all that I was able to find, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened, since the original story had very little semblance to the one that we actually got, and ditto for the gameplay. We do know that they had to scale back and pull back substantially from the original intent, the rather ambitious desire to make what is effectively a No Man's Sky. Now, let me pause for a moment and say that if this game was somehow magically No Man's Sky on the PlayStation 2 in the 2000, the early aughts, 2003 I think is this, that would be insane, but I would have been into that. See, for most of the game, I thought the gameplay kinda sucked. Or really sucked, or was cool, but then really sucked. But then we got to the point where we get the ship. And the controls for the ship felt substantially better designed than controls for the player or the hovercraft. And the ship sections were generally more fun than the entire rest of the game combined. Now, that could be argued back and forth as far as the specifics, but I suppose what I mean about that is that I feel like they had done work and design on making the ship mechanic, the flight mechanic, the exploration mechanic, and then had to scale back and had to add on other mechanics, other engines, other movement codes, other things that make up the game, and the result is what we get. This feels very thrown together by two completely different types of games, and that's because that's exactly what it is. It's such a damn shame, because I really feel like if the original pitch for this game was given now, it would sell better than it would back in 2003. Back in 2003, the hallmark of the PS2 era and the GameCube era, and the Xbox was coming on its way, and things were really big on a certain type of game, and those certain types of games were the games that were garnering interest and were generating money. Now, you could say that's true for every point in gaming history, but one of those weird little truths is that there's certain periods, bands in gaming history, where a whole lot of concept games can be made for one reason or another. This happened once during the SNES era, because all the people who were trying to make games in the wake of the NES era, and this has happened again now, and has happened arguably for about the last 10 years or so at this point. So, point is, if I sat down and I was to do a pitch meeting for you with substantially less attractiveness and effects and charisma and quality of writing, just go watch pitch meeting. If I was to do a pitch meeting for you and I said, all right, you play a woman who's trying to make ends meet, and she does so by going and taking pictures of items or enemies, or, spy material of a military stage, or just local flora and fauna to get paid. And you fly around the planet getting these pictures in order to do so. What do you think? Now, I'm probably the weirdo here because that actually sounds kind of awesome to me. A sci-fi, up in a spaceship, open world Pokemon Snap? Sold. But of course, that's not what this game is. And that's the problem. So, the first dungeon impressed me. It had good puzzle structure, and it used the you plus the page. The two of you worked together. There was clearly co-op designed. Co-op's the wrong word, but you know what I mean? Two-party design thing. It was designed around you and them being a part of the puzzle design. It was great. I enjoyed myself. I liked it. Got to the first boss. Clear Volvagia reference. I was with that too. That was the last time I really enjoyed the gameplay of the game. Because every dungeon after that fell apart more and more and felt less tested. There's one specific section. Boy, I slurred those words, didn't I? One specific section that really sings for me in a negative fashion. That would be in the third dungeon, where the slaughterhouse specifically, where you're going through, and there's this indentations of the floor that you can go through, and there's fog. So the fog's at this level, the indentations are here, and periodically it goes up and then down. So you have to move your way, wait until the guards look the other way, move up to the slant, and then go back down to the fog, right? The collision boxes for this, the movement, the lack of the camera working with you, the inconsistency of being able to tell who was facing what at any given point in time. The whole thing felt like it was thrown together and not tested. I don't mean badly designed. I mean not tested. I felt like it could have been refined maybe 3 or 4 more times and turned it into an actually interesting puzzle instead of just an irritation. And of course, the moment you fail, you die instantly to the instant die lasers. The only thing that prevented this from being truly aggravating was the checkpointing, which is actually really good for a game like this, especially in the PS2 era. The mid-mission checkpoints are fantastic in this game. I give them 2 positives by themselves. So the ideas here are here. Go around, take pictures, stuff like that. And the flight was cool, and I liked the Star Fox battles. I also liked the racing. I did all the races in this game mostly just for fun, and also because I needed pearls. And that was cool. 100% with it, That was enjoyable. But the rest of it was just awkward. And I'd like to say more about the gameplay, but really anything else I say about the gameplay is just going to be reiterating that point. It feels like a mishmash of 5 different gameplay mechanics which have been shoved into one game crudely. There are some of them that work well, some of them that will work okay, and some of them that actively detract from the game. I will say in the game's favor, the fact that you can take pictures from the vehicle was a really good choice, and once again makes me think that the fly around, take pictures things might have worked a little bit better. Story. So, normally I'd say spoiler warning. I guess I will anyways. Spoiler warning. But I'm not sure what there is to spoil exactly. Normally, I like to give thoughts on how I interpreted the story. Ruminations, that's the frickin' title, right? But honestly, I'm not sure what to say about this story. So I'm going to try. I already talked about the book problem, right? Where it's just missing pieces, and you're going through and you're reading it backwards, and it's just weird and awkward, and I don't even know what to make of it, right? That's problem number 1. And let me be clear, I don't actually hold that against the developers at all. I don't. Ubisoft sabotaged the hell out of this game, in addition to the fact that it was probably too ambitious for its time. And, well, let's be honest, there's probably a reason people have been clamoring for a Beyond Good and Evil 2 for the better part of almost 20 years now. By the way, as a fresh reminder, as of the recording of this video, the last news we had on Beyond Good and Evil 2 was from 11 months ago, saying, we're still working on it, and that's it. Jade's a bit of a non-character. Paige is probably the best character in the game. Most of the other characters are mostly background side elements. None of the characters really sung for me, and I think part of the problem there is that they were being shoved into a much more simplistic plot than was originally intended. And when you're in a hurry and making a simplistic plot, you tend to make simplistic characters. Again, not a dig, It's just, there's not much to say there. I do like what they did with the background cast. I do like how there's a lot of really natural exposition on this quirky, weird alien world. The mere fact that there's a pig guy walking around chatting as if he's the mechanic, the fact that there's tons and tons of traffic going in and out of this town on hover cars, the way that they react to certain things like needing power for certain stuff, or having the nature of how they procure units and how deadly the area is, how they react to the regular attacks. There's a lot of natural exposition where people just react to stimuli, and in the doing, we kind of get the kind of world this is. That's cool, and I like that. It provides an interesting setting and backdrop to the overall game, and it makes me want to see more of the story, more plot, more anything within this other than what we got in the actual game, because the actual plot in the game is nonsense. Now, obviously, part of the nonsense problem is the aforementioned book thing. I hate to repeat myself yet again, but it really needs to be reemphasized, because the other part of the problem with the plot is that it's not built up or paid off. So let's discuss the two major issues here with the book thing, okay? Problem number one is what I'm going to call the fever dream issue. I actually showed the intro many times because those of you who were there for yesterday's stream know how much of an issue we had even getting this game running, because it was just this whole thing. I don't want to get into it right now. Oh, God. I apologize to everyone who watched yesterday's stream, by the way. I was in an extraordinarily bad mood after 4 hours of trying to get these games running. Anyways, so I saw the intro several times, and I showed it off several times, and of course we did the review one time through the intro. And the intro is a fever dream. It's a sequence of events that barely connect to each other, and there's a logic there, but it's like a dream logic. It doesn't actually make sense, and the more you think about it, the less it makes sense. There's some guy talking on a news thing, and then some shots go down into the ground, and then we see the portal open up in the sky, even though it doesn't work that way. And then we need to put up the shield, don't have enough power for the shield, electricity bill's been cut, even though there's electricity still working inside, let's ignore that for a moment. And then these things come down, ha, ha, he, hoo, ha, and they gotta say Shawnee, very important. Big dramatic music as we're doing this slow-mo fight. And it's like, okay, we're the PC. Then we get grabbed by a tentacle that says, Shoshkito Lamba Chewbacca. Oh, 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 oh. And then we're saved by a pig, and we fight our first mini-boss. And then we get out, but, we've got that pearl could actually save our debts. It's cool, we're cool. Let's go get the hovercraft warning. What? You have so lost me. And the problem, I think, is it feels like I've talked many times about how writing and storytelling design is a multi-iterative process, right? Over here, the finished product should go through many different iterations to get to that point. You got your first draft, which sometimes isn't even legible, and I use that as an insult. This isn't actually first draft. This is a couple steps past that. But usually after first draft, you've got a couple of concept phases, and then you toss it to the editor. And then the editor and you do some back and forth, and then you get over to this step, which is then the polishing pass, and that's when you get your final draft. These are the rough sections, and this can be anywhere from 6 to 9 to 14 to 30 rewrites, right? This is true in television, this is true in shows, writing, books, which is what writing is. I meant music, not books, but also video games. This feels like this didn't get to the editor. This feels like they had their first draft and they kind of cohesed it a little bit into an idea and never actually tossed it at an editor to go over and say, okay, well, hang on, let's think about the sequencing of this a little bit. So we have we've got this thing going on. And then the crash comes down. Rather than chopping off the audio, have it continue to play as it's coming down. Don't have Jade or anything and talk about it. Have Jade rush up. Oh my God. And hit the thing, and then the shield fails to go up, and then, and then we hear the voice at this point saying, yeah, you have run out of money. And she's like, damn it, no. The crashes come all around. And then I would really seriously think about redoing the intro section where you fight the graboids that are stealing the kids. I get why that's there, but I feel like that needs some polishing passes. And you probably think, well, just do it, Lore. You're not getting it. Polishing passes take time. That's why they're called that. So that's the kind of thing where if we're in the writer's room, I'd be like, all right, hold up. Let's put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. We'll polish that up a little bit later. And if you're paying attention to what I'm talking about, that's probably exactly what happened. I bet you money that someone somewhere, or someone's somewhere, who were competent enough to recognize the problems in this game's plot and story sequencing and pacing, said, this doesn't work, pin in it, we'll polish it later when we get time. And as a reminder, they didn't get time. Narrator, they did not get time. It's right, they didn't get it, so it never happened. So it just stayed the way it is. Now, that's understandable, and that sucks, but no matter why it sucks, it still sucks. This leads us to the other problem. Now, I've complained about this mightily recently because this is a very recurring trend in modern fiction. So, I'm going to reiterate, I apologize, I know some people hate it when I repeat myself, but I get many people asking me to not just assume you've seen every video I've ever recorded, and go ahead and explain my terminology. So, 2/3 rule. When it comes to a narrative timeline, beginning, end, where do you put the big moment? Now, the big moment can be a reveal, it could be a twist, it could be oh my god, and then the aliens invade. Where do you put it? Now, there's a logic behind putting it anywhere in this timeline, but I tend to lean very heavily on the 2/3 rule. First third is establishment and world building. Second third is build up, moment happens, and then the third is payoff, analysis, consequence. Now the big moment has happened, now we can see what its results are. This obviously doesn't fit every narrative, but I think it's a good overall template. However, what modern fiction has fallen absolutely in love with is pushing that moment way over here to the very end. Now, this can work. Anything can work in narrative. It just requires time and work and effort. But this usually doesn't work, because it's usually just being done to guarantee a sequel. It's usually being done as a to be continued. Big plot twist at the end. Now, how do you make this work? Well, this recontextualizes the whole game. And there you go. And now you want to replay it to see it through new eyes. This didn't do that. Instead, we find out, way over here at the end, that, oh yeah, by the way, we're not even human. We're actually some kind of energy thing that was ripped out of this thing, and it wants us back because, well, to live. There's a statue. I got the return thing. We return all the energy to the people to bring them back to life. That's cool. So we're like life energy, which the priest had, but it was evil. Or was it evil before we were ripped? Were we the good half and it's the evil half? No idea. None of this is actually explained or elaborated upon, and that's the problem. This is the core problem with when you push the big moment right to the end, because it needs to be analyzed and followed through on and discussed, and it isn't. It's waiting for the sequel, which may never come out at this point. I remind you, 11 months. I was asked on stream, what do I think we were? And my answer to that was, I have no idea. I didn't mean that as a snark. I meant that as a literal statement. I feel like I have too little info to solve the problem. Right? Blank plus blank equals 5. The answer is unsolvable because I don't have enough information to solve the problem. I don't know what the high priest is. I don't know what the energy is. I don't know are the Doms a species? Are they an offshoot of this thing? Was there ever such a thing as the Doms? I get the strong impression that the Alpha dudes were a mercenary group that were bought or working with the Doms or the High Priest. But there's just so many gaps in my information. It's almost like So, for any of you out there who really enjoy this game, I get it. I feel like this game offers something unique, which is something that tends to be true for a lot of cult classics. And I feel like this game is an example of a game that could really use a Psychonauts 2. If you remember, Psychonauts 1 scored pretty badly as well. It was also a net negative, and while it had a lot of promise, So, here's hoping that if Beyond Good and Evil 2 ever comes out, it follows through and gives us the Psychonauts 2 this game deserves. I hope you've enjoyed my thoughts, such as they are. I'll see you next time.